We're rolling, yeah, candle.
Is that better?
That is great. Simon and I have
There you
just
go.
established that we're
There you
from the same neck of the woods originally. Okay, thank you very much, Simon.
Pleasure.
I explained a bit about my drum quest, and what does a good drummer mean to you? How would you define good drummer? And yes,
Very simple. One that listens. Really simple.
yeah,
You know, I mean, on top of all the other stuff you've got to learn as a musician and your craft, but really it's one that listens.
okay.
That's really, really important.
Going back to when you were young and very young and you picked up the sticks, in the time between you first picking up the sticks and you being recognised as a good drummer, how much work did you put in? Did you, I know you had a musical background, but did you practice a lot as well?
Every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would play.
Like hours?
But remember, I was not hours, because I was a kid.
Yeah.
A kid doesn't have the patience to sit at a drum kit for 2 hours, you know. But I grew up basically playing to records. So I'd play along to my dad's music, and I'd play along to other records, my brother's music, my brother's records that they would buy, because they'd be buying the Stones, the Beatles, and Dave Clark 5, and that kind of stuff. So I'd learn to just play, and that's how I learned to play, was by listening.
I want to ask you about a show tonight. And
Right.
do you still practice even now? All these years later, will you practice before the show?
No, I won't practice. I mean, I'll have a little warm-up,
Yeah.
which might be 10 minutes at the most. The thing is, we play so much now. I mean, this is our 9th show in a row, so even if I didn't warm up, it's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
You as a professional, you learn to adapt very quickly. Frankly, my whole practice schedule really stopped when I moved out of my home that I grew up in when did I move? 74.
Okay.
I haven't really had any like that. I haven't practiced consistently since then.
Okay.
But I've done a lot of playing. So
Yeah, I
started doing sessions very early. So, but when I was on my own in my apartment, I couldn't make any noise, because I tried once and I got this nasty little letter from next door that said, addressed to Dear Little Drummer Boy.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. So that was the end of having drums in the apartment in Kensington.
Okay.
So I would just play, practice a pair of sticks on the arm of a sofa. So I did a lot of my practice actually.
Okay.
And then through the years, when I finally got to the stage where I was able to set up a drum kit in a home that I was in, which took a long time to be able to get a house that you could actually set up in and make some noise, then I'd already got out of the habit of practicing, because it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
So, but I'd still sit down and play, but I guess it was a different kind of playing because I was already playing professionally.
Yes. Okay.
And you kind of have to do your practice as a player.
Yes. Okay.
You know what I mean? That luxury of sitting on your own and running through stuff is over very quickly once you become professional. Sadly.
You've done so much. I can't even begin in a short time to touch on it. But where you are now with your drumming, do you think, even you, who's considered one of the greatest, do you think you can improve still?
Oh, every night.
And are there things that you still
Every
wish you
night.
could do?
Every night.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are drummers out there now they're doing ridiculous things that we, growing up in the period I grew up, the era I grew up, we never knew was even possible.
Right.
I can be very specific, as it's a drumming magazine.
Yeah.
For example, my goal was I want to be really fast on double bass drum.
Okay.
I only ever considered single strokes because I didn't think double strokes were possible on kick drums. And fast forward to Australia, Melbourne, in, I want to say sometime in the 90s, and I was invited over there to do some drum clinics, and there's a guy that runs a drum magazine there, and I think a drum school, called Frank Corniola, and he took me into a studio there where there was a drummer practicing in the next room. But it was a studio where there was a control room, but it wasn't really a professional studio, but it was more of a rehearsal room. But I could see through the window and I could hear what the drummer was doing, and I went, huh? And he was playing double strokes with his kick drums. I'm going, you're kidding me, right? I didn't know that was possible. That was Virgil Donati, a very young Virgil Donati.
And then did you learn
So,
the double kick drum?
I never really got there because by that time, I mean, I do it a little bit, but by that time, that kind of intense, what I call bedroom practice, those days were over.
Okay.
And the only time I really sit at a drum kit is when the red light's on, or we're rehearsing, or we're playing.
Okay.
So, but you see, the concept thing, we were never aware that even that was possible. And there's even more things that you see young drummers playing now. I mean, the chops they have compared to before is really staggering. I mean, you know, there were a few drummers, but there was only a few that had those kind of chops. Buddy Rich, for example,
Yes.
amazing chops. Louis Belson, you know, and plenty more. But now it's just crazy, you know. Unfortunately, though, I call it athletic drumming. We're kind of losing the whole reason to play and the groove and the feel and the sound. One of the biggest things for me is sound.
Yeah.
And a lot of drummers don't even think about it. It's very generic, the sound now.
Yes.
And that to me is sad. Back in the day, you could listen to a record and you go, that's Lenny White, I can recognize his ride cymbal, or his snare sound, or his kick sound. That's Elvin, easily recognizable. Art Blakey, Buddy Rich.
And you have your own sound as
I
well.
have a sound,
And
I've worked very hard on it.
And how would you describe your sound?
Very open. I use a lot of tom-toms, and I really invested time in making the tom-toms a featured instrument of the drum kit.
Yeah.
Because remember, when I started playing, you had one rack and one floor. And then as rock and roll kind of grew and people started getting bigger kits, they started expanding. But the tradition and the concept was still a kit that was one up, one down. So therefore, the concept of playing them was more in with the kit, not so much on their own as a featured instrument. I loved, when I looked at magazines of all these tom-toms, I wanted to know, how does that sound? That must be incredible. And when I started adding toms, to me, it was a very natural thing to play them and to make them sound as a featured instrument, not as just something goes boom and boom, you know?
Yeah.
And I just love the multi-tom outfits. And when I heard Billy Cobham, I went, oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You know, that's where that came from. And then doing a lot of recording and going to studios basically 3 times a day in London, I learned how to get a sound on a drum. I learned what a microphone does. I learned, different types of tuning that really work. You know, they may not work every single time, but 80, 90% of the time it did work. And I was like, aha. And that's what developed, and that's where my sound came from.
See, I've obviously watched you a lot on YouTube, and things, but I've never seen you live until tonight. So I'm excited. Obviously, this is before I haven't seen you yet. Okay, is there just a couple of things more? Anyone that you haven't worked with yet that you would love to have, or if there was anyone else out there?
Yeah, I would love to work with John McLaughlin. I've been a long time fan of John's. as both as a player and especially as a composer. And I guess the thing is, we both come from England. We both found our way over to the States and broke a lot of barriers getting there. It's not easy to do. Most people go over because they're with a band, or they're with a publishing company, or they're with a record company. I wasn't with any of that. I did it all on my own, and I believe that's what John did too. It's much more difficult. Just the politics involved, getting the right visas, figuring out how to do it. It's not easy.
No.
So we both kind of did that thing. I was yearning to live in the States.
How
to
old
play.
were you when you went over?
Mid-30s.
Okay.
35, I think. 92.
I
So.
can hear the accent. I can hear the mild accent.
Oh yeah. I'm half kind of somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic now.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, something that I really. What's the word? Can't think of the word. Too tired. Identify with John, because we kind of did the same thing, although I did it many years later. And I love his zest for life and his zest for playing different types of music. And when he stopped the Mahavishnu Orchestra, he formed Shakti, playing acoustic guitar. It was like, wow, that is so cool. He really broke a lot of barriers. I watched an interview with him recently when he said, Miles said to him, "It's time you go. It's time you start your own band."
Oh, really?
Because he knew that John had so much to offer. So I'm a huge admirer of John McLaughlin and his music. And finally, we got to play together, only as a jam in India, in Mumbai. Thanks to Zakir Hussain, I got to sit in with Shakti, and all these other amazing Indian drummers, because I was performing there as well. And he was sitting right next to me, and it was just wow. So I hope one day we actually get to play properly. Same with Herbie Hancock. I mean, we've played a couple of times, but really like to do like a tour with him or something.
Okay.
So there's still many people I'd love to play with. Yeah.
And last question, because I know you've got to go. What advice would you give to drummers out there that are learning, that are looking up to you, to hold dear, that maybe you wish you'd known then? Or just to hold dear? What piece of advice? Parting piece of advice?
To me, the greatest compliment to receive as a drummer, frankly, is when I hear the word musicality. You play with musicality. That, to me, is the biggest compliment you can pay a drummer, because there is this thing about a drummer kind of not being a musician because he doesn't have to learn scales, harmony, counterpoint, you know what I mean? It's a different animal, the instrument, but that to me is the biggest compliment. So the advice I give is listen. Listen to many styles of music, regardless of what group you're in and what style you're playing. It's not enough for a drummer to just learn how to play one thing. You've got to learn about different types of playing and different types of music, because you can bring all that somehow into playing the music that you're doing. Because somebody, even if it's a heavy metal band, somebody in the band's going to write something that, hey guys, I've got this thing. It's a little bit different, but it goes like this. And it's not your standard rock thing. I mean, listen to The Who. Early music was one way, but then Pete changed it, and suddenly The Who are transformed into playing a different type of music, right? It'll happen. So the drummer has to be, in a way, more versatile and more, what's the word? More command of different styles of music than anybody else in the band.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what shapes the rhythm and the groove and the way the song goes. So don't be afraid of listening to music, all sorts of music, playing along with it, checking it out, trying different tunings. Listen. It's all about listening and education of what's out there musically. I mean, you can study and play paradiddles in your bedroom until the cows come home. But we're talking about being a musical drummer and playing music, because that's what, in the end, you don't usually go on stage and get the chance to solo.
No.
You're playing as a part of a band, so you've got to really, you know, that's to me the most important thing about playing is the musicality of it.
You know what? I've got to let him go. I could talk to him. I was like, Simon Phillips in the house. I can't believe it. Can I fill these drummer hands?
Yeah.
That's what I have to do. 'Cause Mr. Simon Phillips, respect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.